Welcome to FromRome.Info video. My name is Brother Alexis Bugnolo, and this is a report on COVID-19 in Italy, my third report. I'm going to do first a newspaper review and then try to get some interviews from Italians. So the headlines today in La Verità are that there's a hunt on for Italians. Italians, according to the health decrees, must stay at home and only go out for approved reasons. So drones, helicopters, and the force of the law is being used to hunt down Italians who are violating the decrees. It's a true Orwellian state. It's completely outrageous. You can be fined up to 600 euros, according to the new decree. And there is a political outcry. It's absolutely outrageous. The next is a horror story from the hospitals of Tuscany. Dead bodies are being left for up to 42 hours in beds next to patients who are still alive. At Villa San Biagio, that's a hospital, 53 out of every 55 visitors to the hospital become infected with coronavirus. They're counting a death a day. The hospital's totally contaminated, and obviously there's no proper medical procedures. Italy has a socialized medical system, so that means under stress it just collapses because it doesn't have the funds to respond other than what they get. The next reported story is that not only helicopters, drones, but even public street cameras are being used to fault Italians. The most outrageous thing for the Italians, though, is the report that the government is going to allow illegal immigrants to keep entering the country. The Italians can't leave their town, but illegal immigrants can enter the country. And Maurizio Del Pietro is complaining that even on the public streets, illegal immigrants are allowed to wander without any paperwork at all, while Italians, if they go out without their paperwork, immediately fined. And this is true. When I go out at midnight and do the devotion to Our Lady in front of Basilica Santa Maria Maggiore, the foreigners are wandering all over the place, and you know they don't have any documents. So it's so that's the main stories out of La Verità. Next, for Il Giornale, one of the leading conservative newspapers out of Milan, the headline today is 30 brains around the Prime Minister, but no one can make a decision. And they lament the fact that with all the advisors that the Giuseppe Conte, the president of the Council of Ministers, has, he still can't figure out how to open up the country after coronavirus. And there is a report that the economy has already collapsed by 9% due to the control. It seems like the fear of these small numbers of deaths is causing them to destroy the whole economy. It's absolutely crazy. On page 2, they're talking about how consumer spending has fallen 30%. And that they're expecting a 13% decline in the economy this year. And socialists attempt to solve the problems they cause by creating more problems, and this is what you see going on. And they have a review on the productivity loss in each country. They say the world is going to have a 3% decline this year, U.S. a 5.9% decrease. The European Union will suffer a 7.5% decrease, Germany a 7%, France 7.2%, Italy a 9.1%, and Spain at 8.0%. You would think that would get them to start realizing that an 8% collapse in the economy is more important than a dubious 25,000 dead, of which they already know that only 1/8 of them actually died of coronavirus, and said to have died of coronavirus, but they're not even sure of that. The recent reports coming out of the United States show that it's the ventilators who are killing people because the coronavirus causes a starvation of oxygen in the bloodstream, not in the lung. So trying to force more air into the lungs and damaging them isn't helping the person whatsoever. The solution is hydroxychloroquine, which I have seen no word in the Italian press that it's being used. So that's Il Giornale. And finally, Il Messaggero, one of the leading, I'd say, central-left newspapers of Rome. It's definitely a pro-Bergoglio, anti-Salvini kind of paper, but a lead article is discussing what's the roadmap for reopening the economy, and people are getting itchy. We'll see that in the videos I'm about to show you. There's much more people out in the street, especially on a beautiful day like this. Italians can't manage to stay inside. They're outdoor people. Already a few more stores are open here. On the 14th yesterday, they allowed bookstores, and there's already talk in the Senate to have a law allowing other kind of stores to be opened. How they can allow a bookstore to open when all those books are touched by people with hands and full of disease, and yet keep the churches closed. The Senate on Saturday approved a resolution asking the government to negotiate with the Bishops' Conference to reopen the churches, but neither the government nor the Bishops' Conference moved or in time for Easter, or has even, I haven't seen a report yet, they've even moved at all. So that is the review of the main newspapers today in Italy today, and now show you some of the things what's going on the street. Here I am in front of a local branch of the Questura, which is the Italian police. You can see in recent days here in Italy, more and more people are out on the streets. I guess either they know their rights or they're not being so scared. But it's still only a small percent, maybe 2 or 3% of the numbers you normally see. The police are no longer really stopping anyone for papers or out in the street. They just assume everyone is going about their business. I think it would just be too, it's just become too noisome of them to constantly check those things. But probably otherwise, most everyone's already been stopped. I think in the last report I saw in Rome, they had already stopped 9,000 people in the city to check their papers and or fine them. Okay, it's always good to hear from the funeral directors what's going on, and I stopped here and I had a short conversation with the responsibles. They normally bury 170 persons a year. It's just a small business. And they've had 2 so far this year from coronavirus. One was from the Gemelli Hospital, which is the center for the care of individuals with COVID-19 here at Rome. And that person was over 75. And another person from another hospital, and they were over 80 years old. So those are the only 2 clients they've seen from coronavirus, and they fit the characteristics that we see reported, that it's only the aged who already have probably comorbidities. Okay, a little report now on supermarkets. It's Wednesday, it's a sunny day, but as you can see, there's already a huge line outside the supermarket. And this supermarket normally has no lines. It's also one of the most highest priced supermarkets. It's well stocked. But you can see everyone is wearing a mask. It came out, I think, on television a few days ago that you're supposed to wear a mask. But I have not seen any written legal statement. Nevertheless, most people are now convinced to wear masks at all time, even though they're not being told that it's not a pneumotic disease. It's a disease that causes you to die of oxygen deprivation in your blood. So a mask may or may not be helpful. Okay, here we're in front of a local pizzeria. This pizzeria was thriving and always busy before the coronavirus controls came down. I went to it just as the decrees came through, and all they were selling was bread and pizza without tomatoes and cheese on it. And as they bill themselves as a wood-fired pizza place. But now you can see they're closed, and the woman was lamenting that they couldn't sell their product because that wasn't considered essential food. Can you imagine? We're here in Italy, and pizza you could have a white pizza, I mean just bread and olive oil, but you could not have cheese or tomatoes on it because that wasn't considered essential. So they closed their doors, whether they'll come back. We're seeing more stores here in Italy with notices saying out of business. It's a way of, in Italy, if you declare you've gone out of business, it's basically declaring bankruptcy. Your creditors can't come after you for expenses. So it's having a devastating effect on small businesses here in Italy, the corona controls. Here we are in front of elementary school, day school run by the Knights of Columbus here in Italy. This place was thriving. There would be crowds of people out here, especially in the morning, parents loading kids off or picking them up. It's been closed now because of the corona controls. What's happening to these children's education? Evidently, the government doesn't care at all. It's incredible. Devastating impact on the youth. This part of the city also has a lot of university students, and you basically could hardly even make it down the street on a Friday night or Saturday night. So many students would be out at the bars. The universities are all closed. Their degrees, how are they going to complete them? They've missed a semester, and that puts them all back on their careers. This shows you the absolute madness of this corona hype.
Truffatori, mentitori seriali.
Sì.
E allora ho smesso di guardarlo. Io guardo la televisione, lo uso soltanto per guardare i film e basta. Non guardo né telegiornali né le trasmissioni talk show, cosiddetti talk show. Guardo solo film in televisione, basta. Perché veramente sono diventati inguardabili, veramente fanno schifo. Purtroppo non tutti ci rendiamo conto di questa situazione, perché io fortunatamente mi accorgo delle falsità che dicono, ma non tutti se ne accorgono, e quindi magari certuni ascoltano e vanno dietro come pecorone, ascoltano e rispettano quello che dicono.
Quindi secondo lei è più affidabile i scienziati su rete e non i giornalisti su televisione?
Sono più affidabili gli scienziati in rete.
E lei pensa
la televisione è allineata al pensiero unico, c'è questa dittatura del pensiero unico.
E lei pensa che i giornalisti diffondono
politicamente corretto.
E lei pensa che i giornalisti sta diffondendo troppo paura?
Troppi giornalisti sono allineati al pensiero unico, troppi. Sono pochi quelli veramente liberi e indipendenti.
E
sono pochi.
Che pensa lei della reazione del governo italiano a questo crisi?
Questo è un governo criminale, io lo considero un governo criminale, poi gli altri non lo so, io personalmente lo considero un governo criminale. Infatti io non ho mai votato né PD né 5 Stelle. Capito? Per me è un governo criminale, infatti è stato denunciato all'autorità giudiziaria da un avvocato che si chiama Carlo Taormina, è stato denunciato per epidemia colposa. E loro in parte sono stati diciamo, come dire, collusi. Ha denunciato il governo, sì. Perché loro praticamente, perché c'è una contraddizione, questo governo il 31 gennaio ha emanato una delibera di stato di emergenza per 6 mesi, è uscita sulla Gazzetta Ufficiale il 1 febbraio, e come mai per quasi un mese non hanno fatto niente? Alla televisione dicevano sempre, specialmente Conte, siamo prontissimi, e non facevano niente. E così il virus ha avuto il tempo di diffondersi. Per questo ha cominciato dalla Lombardia, perché la Lombardia c'è lo scalo internazionale della Malpensa, e arrivano tutti da lì, e quindi è chiaro che la Lombardia è diventato il centro di diffusione per tutta l'Italia e forse anche per tutta l'Europa, purtroppo.
Sì.
Perché...
E conosce lei qualcuno che è vittima di coronavirus? Cioè
no.
Tutti amici, parenti?
No, non conosco nessuno, perché la maggior parte sono del nord.
E tutti voi avete amici, parenti vittime di coronavirus? Conoscete qualcuno con la malattia? Nessuno? Ok, va bene. La ringrazio.
Prego.
So that was a very interesting conversation with an Italian citizen who has a degree in chemistry. I talked with him because he's not wearing a face mask, so I figured he might be a critical thinker, and it turns out he is. He thinks the government here in Italy is completely criminal, and that if anyone is dying of coronavirus, it is the fault of the government for not taking immediate action. He doesn't wear a mask because he says it's not going to protect you from the virus. It's just going to keep it on your face all day long if your mask gets infected. I asked him if he's heard anything about chloroquine. He's just very little. The reason why he's such a critical thinker is he does not watch television. He hasn't watched television for 2 years. He believes that the journalists here in Italy are all involved in the one, Italians call it pensiero unico, the one thought. It's kind of like we would say Big Brother. They just all follow the same line and you hear the same news. So he only reads what scientists and professional doctors are saying about coronavirus, and he uses only the internet for his information. He doesn't watch television or radio. He also said he has not heard about the effect of zinc in treatment, and he has heard a little about hydroxychloroquine, but not much. It's really not much in the news here, which is amazing. He hasn't heard the study of the 1,061 patients in France, and he hasn't heard how the proteins of coronavirus cause oxygen starvation in the blood. But he's open to those ideas because as a chemist he understands these things. So other than that, you see most people are wearing masks of all different kinds. Here is the Institute of Neuropsychopathy at the University of Sapienza. It's for children, and it's recently opened the last few days. I've seen some ambulances come and bring patients, which before it was kind of closed. More and more places are opening up that way. So this has been a report on COVID-19 in Italy, April 15th, 2020. I would sum it up by saying Italians are impatient and want to get back to life, but most of them are still under the mind control of the propaganda put out by the state that coronavirus. I'll add one point thing, and the last thing I asked the entire crowd is, do any of you know anyone who's a victim of coronavirus? And they all said no. Okay, this has been From Rome Info Video, report for coronavirus, April 15th.